It was a warm Saturday afternoon in June 1991 when Lisa Carpenter set up balloons, party hats, and a small backyard clown to celebrate her son Ethan's 7th birthday. Neighbors gathered, children ran laughing across the lawn, and everything felt perfect till it wasn't. Just past 3 p.m., during a game of hide-and-seek, Ethan vanished. One moment he was giggling behind the bushes, and the next he was gone without a sound. Despite a massive search effort involving local police, helicopters, and even volunteers combing the nearby woods, no trace of Ethan was ever found. His name faded from headlines, but not from his mother's heart. She kept his room untouched for years, holding on to hope that somehow, somewhere, he'd find his way back. Then, a decade later, while browsing a quiet Sunday yard sale to towns over, Lisa's eyes fell on something that froze her in place: a small, beat-up toy fire truck. It was the exact same model she'd given Ethan on his birthday that morning in '91. But what made her drop it in shock wasn't the toy itself. It was the faint handwriting scratched on the underside. She turned it over, heart pounding. It read, Ethan C., 1991. Her hands trembled. The woman running the sale didn't recognize the name, said the box of old toys had come from a storage unit bought at auction. That moment lit a spark and reopened a mystery that had never truly been closed. What happened next would leave everyone stunned. Lisa stood frozen in the middle of the driveway, clutching the toy like it might disappear again if she blinked. The woman selling the items looked confused but kind, telling her the box had been untouched when she picked it up from a storage unit auction just outside of town. Lisa's mind raced. How could Ethan's toy have ended up in a random unit so far from home? That handwriting. She knew it like she knew her own. She had helped him write his name on all his favorite things before the party, including that very fire truck. She gently asked if there were more toys from the same box. The woman nodded and led her to a few other action figures, a small blue lunchbox with faded stickers and a tattered red cap. Every item brought a wave of emotion. They all looked eerily familiar. Lisa remembered packing up Ethan's belongings a year after he vanished, tucking everything into plastic bins she kept in the attic. But she had never given those toys away. How had they left her house? She called the sheriff's office the same day. At first, the deputy on duty was polite but dismissive, assuming it was a coincidence. But once Lisa showed photos from 1991 and compared them to the toys, the mood changed. Something wasn't right. An officer promised to follow up. Night, Lisa sat alone at her kitchen table, staring at the fire truck. For the first time in 10 years, the silence didn't feel empty, felt like a whisper. 2 days later, Lisa received a call from Deputy Harris, the same officer who had taken her report. His voice was more serious this time. He told her the storage unit where the toys were found had been rented under a false name with no clear link to anyone local. Even more disturbing, the name on the rental agreement, Edward L. Lay, matched an alias used in a cold case file from the late 90s, involving a string of missing children in the neighboring state. That name had appeared once in Ethan's file, but it was never confirmed or followed up. As Lisa processed this, a new question surfaced in her mind. What if Ethan hadn't simply vanished? What if someone had taken him, someone organized, careful, and still out there? The fire truck suddenly felt less like a memory and more like a message, intentionally left behind. Meanwhile, Ethan's father, Mark, who had moved away years ago after the loss tore the family apart, returned to town after hearing from Lisa. He had his doubts, but seeing the items in person changed something in him. Old guilt surfaced. He had never forgiven himself for stepping away during the search. Now he wanted to help. Together, they began reviewing everything: police files, neighborhood tips, even the old VHS tapes from the party. That's when Lisa noticed something strange in the background of one clip. A figure. Not part of the family, not a guest. Just standing there, watching. And then? Gone. Lisa froze the video, her heart racing as she leaned closer to the screen. The man in the background was blurred, almost hidden by shadows near the fence. But what struck her was how still he stood, how fixated he seemed, staring straight toward where Ethan had been playing minutes before he vanished. She showed the tape to Mark and Harris. The deputy paused, then said quietly, "That's not just some guest. That's someone watching." The three of them pored over the footage again and again. Harris sent it to forensics, hoping someone could enhance the image. Meanwhile, Lisa started asking neighbors if they remembered anyone suspicious that Deanne. Delivery trucks, repairmen, strangers. One elderly neighbor, Mrs. Callahan, mentioned a moving truck parked just down the block the morning of the party. She remembered it because it had no markings on the side, just plain white. Oh. She thought it odd, but never questioned it. Mark, digging through his own memories, suddenly recalled something else: a man who had asked him for directions that same day, pretending to look for a house on the next street over. At the time, Mark hadn't thought anything of it. But now, that man's blank stare and quiet tone felt unnerving. Then came a breakthrough. Harris got a hit from facial recognition software. The man from the VHS matched a suspect linked to multiple child disappearances in the 80s and 90s. He'd vanished in 1993. No record since. No address, no trail. Until now, just as the leads seemed to point them toward long, cold trails, another discovery shifted everything. While going through items Lisa had boxed up after Ethan's disappearance, she found a sealed envelope tucked in an old storybook he used to love. The handwriting on it was shaky, unfamiliar, and not hers. Inside was a single Polaroid photo: Ethan, unmistakably older than 5, standing beside an old blue barn with a rusty windmill behind it. Scribbled on the back were 3 words: still here, waiting. The time stamp on the photo read 1998. Lisa's breath caught in her throat. That was 7 years after Ethan vanished. Mark, stunned, confirmed the photo wasn't there before they'd both gone through every box back in the early days, which meant someone had been inside the house recently and left it there. But why? Harris brought in the photo for analysis. The background matched no local farms, but the windmill was unique. He began cross-referencing old agricultural records across several counties. While that unfolded, Lisa started receiving anonymous phone calls, no voice, just breathing. Call, however, left a single phrase before disconnecting. He knows you're looking. Suddenly, the danger wasn't just in the past. Whoever had taken Ethan might still be watching, still nearby. The discovery of the photo suggested Ethan had been alive years after he vanished, possibly still was. But it also meant that someone had gone to great lengths to keep that truth hidden. The question now wasn't just where Ethan was, but why he'd never come home. The breakthrough came one rainy afternoon when Sheriff Harris tracked the unique windmill in the photo to an abandoned property deep in the hills of a forgotten county line. The land had once belonged to a man named Wallace Green, a quiet, reclusive figure who had passed away years ago, months after the date stamped on the photo. Armed with a warrant, Harris and his team searched the rundown barn on the property. What they found inside was both heartbreaking and astonishing. Hidden beneath the barn's floorboards was a small, makeshift room. Inside were old toys, children's clothes from the early 90s, and a dusty, locked metal box. Inside the box were dozens of photos: Ethan at various ages, looking healthy but distant, like someone raised in isolation. The most recent photo was dated just 3 years ago, and then, in the barn's loft, they found something even more shocking: hand-carved wooden plaque with Ethan's full name etched into it, and a drawing he'd made as a child. the same drawing Lisa had framed in his old bedroom. That's when Harris noticed the initials WG burned into one of the beams. The final twist came days later, when DNA confirmed that Wallace Green wasn't just Ethan's captor. He was his biological grandfather. A family secret buried long ago had erupted into a quiet kidnapping, hidden under the weight of shame and silence. Ethan had been taken not by a stranger, but by a man seeking to correct an old mistake. The boy had never known the truth. After the truth came out, Lisa stood in Ethan's childhood bedroom once more, holding the drawing that had somehow survived it all. Her son, now 21, was living under a different name just a few counties away, raised by foster care after Green's death. He had no memory of the birthday party, no memory of her face, but a quiet curiosity sparked when he saw her photo, something in him pausing before he turned away. It would take time, the expert said. Trauma doesn't heal overnight, especially when it's buried beneath years of lies and identity confusion. The town, once caught in whispers and unsolved rumors, slowly found closure. Ethan's case had been a mystery that haunted a generation, one that finally found its answers in a place no one expected: a dusty barn and an old man's misguided attempt to right a perceived wrong. Lisa didn't seek revenge. She didn't want headlines or lawsuits. She only wanted to give her son space, to let him decide if and when he was ready to reconnect. The yard sale photo, the one that had set everything in motion, now sits framed in Lisa's living room.